What happens when you were chosen by an alpha so feared, even the bravest omegas wouldn't dare cross him? Welcome to Forbidden Tales by Nanya, where every heartbeat tells a story and every forbidden desire comes to life. Here, passion burns hotter than fire, love defies rules, and every secret whispered in the dark is waiting for you to uncover. If you love dark romance, forbidden love, and immersive fantasy tales, subscribe now and join our world of passion, danger, and desire. There's a new story waiting for you every week. Tonight's story is one of danger, desire, and destiny. It's about being sold to an alpha king who leaves no room for mercy. My name is Elara, and this is my story. I never imagined that one decision could change my life forever. One moment, I was just another Omega trying to survive in the shadows of the pack. The next, I was standing in the grand hall of the Alpha King, heart hammering, palms sweaty, as his piercing eyes scanned me like a predator studying its prey. "You will be mine," he said, his voice deep and commanding, leaving no room for argument. I wanted to run, to fight, to scream, but something in me knew that resisting him wasn't an option. Not tonight. Not ever. The morning had begun like any other, with the sun just peeking over the horizon, casting a faint gold across the rooftops. But I knew, even before I opened the door, that today would not be like any other. A soft tap at my window made me startle. My heart raced before I even saw the envelope lying on the sill. It was unlike any note I had ever received. Heavy parchment, sealed with black wax, and embossed with the mark that made every Omega in the pack shiver. The Alpha King's sigil. I froze. My hands shook as I reached for it, tracing the embossed emblem with trembling fingers. Rumors surrounded this mark. Whispers of power, fear, and death. Those who had been summoned before me were either broken or vanished entirely. And yet, here it was, calling my name. "Elara," I whispered, tasting it on my lips as if speaking it aloud could somehow make the threat feel real. I broke the seal. The letter inside was simple, direct, and terrifying. "You have been chosen. Prepare yourself. The Alpha awaits." I dropped the note and it fluttered to the floor. My chest tightened, my mind spinning. Chosen. That word should have filled me with pride, but instead it filled me with dread. My life had been simple, quiet, almost invisible. I had survived by blending into the shadows, by never drawing attention. And now, I was the focus of the most powerful alpha in the pack. I sank to the floor, clutching my knees. Thoughts raced through my mind. Why me? What had I done to deserve this? Was it luck, fate, or some cruel twist of destiny? Every instinct screamed for me to run, to hide, to vanish into the streets where no one would see me. But another feeling, sharper, darker, and impossible to ignore, stirred deep inside. Curiosity. A tiny spark of something dangerous. Desire. I forced myself to stand. There was no time for hesitation. If I lingered, if I hesitated, fear would consume me. I had to face what awaited. Slowly, deliberately, I tucked the letter into my pocket. I smoothed the folds of my dress, straightened my shoulders, and exhaled. Tonight, everything would change. Tonight, I would step into a world I had only ever glimpsed in whispers and shadows. A world ruled by the Alpha King. And whether I wanted it or not, I was ready to enter. I stood before the mirror, the flickering candlelight casting shadows across my small room. My reflection looked back at me, pale and tense, eyes wide with both fear and something else I dared not name. Courage? Curiosity? Or the faint, forbidden pull that seemed to coil around my chest every time I thought of him, the Alpha King. My fingers trembled as I adjusted the dress I had chosen. It was simple, dark, elegant, nothing that would draw unnecessary attention, yet enough to hint that I belonged to someone powerful, someone feared, someone impossible. I thought of the other Omegas. Some had screamed when summoned, others had tried to bargain, only to return broken. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. I had to survive, not just with my life, but with my pride, with the small ember of strength that had carried me through countless days of hiding and hoping no one noticed me. Breathing deeply, I ran my hands down the fabric, feeling the cool silk against my skin. I imagined the hall, the towering figure of the Alpha, his eyes like blades slicing through the shadows. My pulse quickened and my stomach tightened into knots. The thought of standing in his presence alone and exposed made me shiver. Yet, oddly, I couldn't look away in my mind's eye. I paused at my desk, where a small dagger lay hidden beneath a stack of papers. Not that it would do me any good against him, I knew that, but it was a comfort, a reminder that I had survived by my wits before, and perhaps I could again. A soft knock at the door startled me. My breath caught and I froze. The world outside my small room felt impossibly large and dangerous now. Whoever or whatever awaited me tonight would decide my fate, and there was no turning back. I took one last glance at my reflection. My eyes held a mixture of fear, determination, and something else I didn't dare admit. Desire? No, perhaps not yet. But it lingered there, quiet and insistent, like a shadow brushing against my skin. With a final, trembling exhale, I picked up the Alpha's note from the floor and tucked it carefully into my pocket. Tonight, the path would open before me. Every step I took would lead me closer to him and to a destiny I could neither predict nor control. I was ready, or at least I told myself I was, and with that, I stepped toward the door. The streets were quiet, cloaked in a mist that curled around the cobblestones like a living thing. Every step I took echoed softly, bouncing off the walls of the narrow alleys, as if the city itself were holding its breath, waiting for me to fail. I kept my head low, clutching the folds of my dress, though I knew it wouldn't hide me from the Alpha's gaze. Nothing could. His mark burned like a promise in my pocket, and with every beat of my heart, I felt the weight of what awaited me, pressing down harder. The air smelled faintly of damp stone and smoke, mixed with something sharp that made my senses tingle. My mind raced through the stories I'd heard. Other Omegas spoke in hushed tones about his hall, how it was enormous, cold, and unforgiving, about how he commanded respect not just through strength, but fear. And yet, I couldn't help imagining him. Tall, dominant, eyes like dark flames, that voice, deep, smooth, and cutting like steel. Even thinking about it made my pulse jump and my stomach twist. I passed a small alley where shadows shifted. A figure lurked there. Just a man, probably another pack member, and he froze when our eyes met. He didn't speak. He didn't move. His silence was louder than any warning. I hurried past, telling myself it was nothing, but my mind refused to quiet. Every step brought me closer to the gates. to the stone walls that held the Alpha King's domain. And with each step, a strange mix of fear and curiosity tightened around me like a second skin. I wanted to run, yet every instinct told me I would not survive if I did. Finally, the gates came into view, massive, ancient, and formidable. Torches flickered along the walls, casting dancing shadows that made the stone seem alive. I slowed my pace, letting the enormity of it sink in. This was the threshold between the world I knew and a realm ruled by power, dominance, and desire I couldn't yet comprehend. I took a deep breath, forcing courage into my lungs. The note burned against my thigh, a reminder that I had no choice. Tonight I would meet the Alpha King. Tonight, my fate would be sealed. A soft, almost imperceptible click sounded as the gates began to open. My heart leapt into my throat. The mist swirled around me, wrapping me in shadows as the massive doors slowly parted, revealing the hall within. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to turn, to run, but I didn't. I stepped forward, one foot at a time, into the unknown. The gates towered over me like stone sentinels, ancient and unyielding. I stopped at the threshold, my breath catching in my throat. The torches flared as if sensing my hesitation, throwing tall, flickering shadows across the ground. Every shadow seemed alive, twisting and writhing, daring me to step forward. I clutched the folds of my dress tighter. My fingers were cold, trembling despite my best efforts to steady them. This was no ordinary hall. I could feel it pulsing with power, a heartbeat that was not mine. Each stone seemed to hum under the weight of centuries of authority, secrets, and whispered commands. A soft rustle behind me made me whirl, but the street was empty. Only the mist clung to the cobblestones, curling around my ankles like ghostly fingers. I swallowed hard and stepped closer. The massive gates were carved from dark oak, iron reinforced, etched with symbols I didn't recognize, but somehow felt familiar. Symbols of dominance, of protection, of rule. I traced them with my eyes, memorizing every curve and line, as if doing so would prepare me for what waited inside. Then I saw him, the Alpha King. He didn't need to announce himself. His presence alone filled the space beyond the gates. The air felt heavier, almost electric. I could hear the faintest echo of footsteps, his, deliberate and commanding. The massive doors groaned as they opened, slow and ominous. A gust of cool air swept past me, carrying with it the sense of him, dark, musky, intoxicating. My pulse jumped. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and flee, but my feet remained rooted, as if chained by both fear and curiosity. Through the opening, I caught my first glimpse of the hall. Vast, shadowed, lit only by flickering torches along the walls, casting golden light across polished stone floors. Shadows pooled in the corners, hinting at unseen observers, silent witnesses to everything that would happen tonight. And there he was, standing at the far end, tall and commanding, eyes that seemed to peer straight through me, even from this distance. The Alpha King. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I knew, without a doubt, that the moment I stepped through those gates, my life would be forever changed. One step, another, and then I crossed the threshold. The gate swung shut behind me with a resonant clang, sealing me in. My fate had begun. The moment I stepped into the hall, the air seemed to change. It was heavier, thicker, like the walls themselves breathed, and every stone pulsed with the Alpha King's presence. My footsteps echoed across the polished floor, each one announcing me, drawing invisible eyes toward me. The hall was vast, grander than I had imagined. Torches flickered along the walls, casting dancing shadows that stretched like fingers. Ornate carvings ran the length of the room, telling stories I could not decipher, of power, conquest, and centuries of rule. And there he stood, the Alpha King. Every tale I had ever heard, every whisper of fear and awe paled compared to the reality of him. Tall, impossibly broad-shouldered, with an aura that commanded the room without him saying a word. His eyes, dark, intense, and unyielding, locked onto me the instant I entered. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and yet something inside me stirred, a forbidden curiosity that I didn't dare acknowledge. He took a step forward, and the hall seemed smaller, the shadows deeper. "Elara," he said, his voice low, smooth, and undeniably powerful. "You have arrived." My throat went dry. Yes, I managed barely above a whisper. He circled me slowly, predator-like, examining me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Do you understand why you are here?" I think so," I stammered, my mind racing. "Do I?" His lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. "You will learn quickly. Here, obedience is survival, and sometimes desire walks hand in hand with danger." A shiver ran down my spine. I wanted to look away, to flee, but my feet refused to move. I couldn't. His presence, his power, his mere gaze rooted me to the spot. "Do you fear me, Elara?" he asked, pausing just a breath away. I do," I admitted, voice trembling, "but I want to understand." He tilted his head, studying me as though he were unraveling a puzzle. "Good. Fear keeps you alive. Curiosity keeps you interesting." The tension between us was almost unbearable. I could feel the heat of his presence, the pull of something dangerous yet thrilling. The hall seemed to fade around me, leaving only him and me caught in a silent battle neither of us had yet named. And in that moment, I realized nothing would ever be the same. He moved around me slowly, deliberately, each step echoing across the hall. My heart raced, each beat loud enough that I was certain he could hear it. His gaze never wavered, sharp and commanding, as if he could see every secret buried deep inside me. "You are brave," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "Or foolish. Sometimes the two are the same." I swallowed hard. I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely steady, "but I do know I'm terrified." He circled me again, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, intoxicating and dangerous. The scent of him, musky, dark, undeniable, wrapped around me, tugging at some hidden part of myself I had never allowed to exist. "You feel it," he said, his lips curling into that dangerous smile, that pull between fear and something else. Desire, curiosity, something forbidden. I wanted to deny it, to claim that I was only scared, but the truth pulsed through me, undeniable. I felt it, every nerve alive, every instinct screaming both warning and temptation. Do not mistake fear for weakness, Elara, and do not mistake curiosity for control. You are mine to test, to claim, if you are worthy. I shivered, unsure if it was the cold stone beneath my feet or the words themselves. Worthiness. The Alpha King had already decided my fate, and yet the idea of earning even a fraction of his approval ignited something inside me, something dangerous and thrilling. He stopped directly in front of me, so close that I could see the faint glint in his eyes, the sharp angles of his jaw, the power coiled in every line of his body. "Tell me, Elara, do you obey willingly or do I need to ensure it?" I wanted to speak, to fight, to resist, but the truth was heavier than fear, darker than the night surrounding us. I will obey," I whispered, my voice trembling, "if it keeps me alive, and if I can survive what comes next." He studied me, silence stretching, thick and suffocating, then a single approving nod. "Good, that will serve you well, for now." The tension didn't break, it only shifted, a silent promise that danger and desire would walk together from this moment on. And as he stepped back, circling once more, I realized the Alpha King wasn't just testing me, he was claiming me in ways I didn't yet understand, and in ways I feared I might crave. I drew in a shaky breath, forcing my voice to carry over the heavy silence of the hall. I'm not trembling," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. He paused mid-step, tilting his head as if assessing whether I was lying. The faintest smirk brushed his lips. "Do not lie to me, Elara," he said, low and commanding. "I will know." My stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed at me to be silent, to hide behind fear. But something inside me flared, a spark of defiance I hadn't realized I still possessed. "I'm not," I repeated, my voice firmer this time, though my hands shook. "Not from fear, maybe from curiosity." His eyes narrowed, sharp and piercing, and I felt them burn into my soul. "Curiosity," he echoed, like tasting a forbidden flavor. "Ah, so you are brave or reckless, perhaps both." I dared a glance at him, meeting his gaze. "I want to understand," I said quietly. "Not just survive, but understand you, your rules. Why this? Why me?" The Alpha King's expression shifted slightly, almost amused, almost approving. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. "You will learn quickly," he said, voice softening just enough to make my pulse spike, "that speaking doesn't always protect you. Obedience sometimes does. But curiosity keeps life interesting." I felt my cheeks flush, both from fear and something deeper I couldn't name. Desire, temptation, a dangerous pull that made my heart pound and my thoughts scatter. He circled me once more, eyes never leaving mine. "You may think you are in control of your words, Elara," he murmured, "but I assure you, I am in control of much more than that." I nodded, swallowing hard, aware of how exposed I felt, how alive, how vulnerable, and yet, amid the fear and tension, a strange thrill stirred inside me, a forbidden desire I wasn't ready to admit, not even to myself. The hole felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves had leaned closer, pressing in on me. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears, loud, insistent, unrelenting. I could feel him, the Alpha Thing, every inch of him, moving around me like a storm circling a fragile flame. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured, his voice low, rich, carrying a dangerous undertone that made my pulse skip. "That pool, the one between fear and something else." I swallowed hard, aware of the heat creeping across my skin, the quickening of my pulse, the tremor in my hands. I don't know what you mean, I whispered, though my voice betrayed me. His eyes flared with a faint, almost predatory glint. You do, he said, stepping closer, close enough that I could feel his presence brushing against me, like a storm about to break. You will learn quickly, Elara, that desire can be as binding as fear, and just as dangerous. I wanted to look away, to retreat, but my body refused. Something deep inside me responded to him, a forbidden, undeniable pull that made my chest tighten and my thoughts scatter. He reached out, just a hand's breadth from my arm, letting the air between us tremble with tension. This is the first step, he said, voice low, commanding, yet laced with something darkly intimate. You are mine in ways you cannot yet understand. I shivered, not entirely from fear. The words wrapped around me like a shadow, thrilling and terrifying at once. Desire, danger, power, all of it entwined in him, in the way he moved, in the way he looked at me, piercing, claiming, yet leaving room for my own spark to fight against him. I swallowed, breath coming fast, mind racing. I don't know what you mean, I whispered. I don't know what to say. He leaned just slightly, a whisper away, and I could feel the heat of him, the force of his presence, and the quiet, undeniable claim that made my body react against my will. Good, he said softly. Fear and desire, Elara. They will keep you alive and keep you interesting. The tension between us didn't break. It only deepened, a silent promise that this was not the end. Not yet. The first claim had been made, not with force, but with the intoxicating weight of his presence, his dominance, his power, and something else, something forbidden. I realized, with a thrill I couldn't suppress, that nothing in my life would ever feel safe again. The Alpha King finally stepped back, his presence lingering like a shadow over me even as he moved away. I was left standing in the vast hall, every echo of his voice, every glance, every brush of heat against my skin imprinted in my mind. I sank to a bench near the edge of the hall, my hands trembling slightly as I pressed them into my lap. My chest was tight, my pulse a relentless drum, and my thoughts refused to settle. What just happened? I asked myself, though I already knew. He had claimed me, not with chains or violence, but with his presence, with the weight of his dominance and that intoxicating pull I could neither resist nor deny. I closed my eyes, trying to center myself, to separate fear from curiosity, from the forbidden desire that flickered dangerously inside me. But the more I tried, the stronger it grew. I could still feel him, lingering in every nerve ending, his voice replaying in my mind like a dangerous melody. Desire can be as binding as fear, and just as dangerous. I shivered, the words stirring something I couldn't name. I had always known life could be harsh, brutal even. I had survived by hiding, by blending into shadows, by keeping my heart distant and my desires controlled. But now every rule I had ever lived by felt fragile, meaningless. My thoughts wandered to the Alpha King himself, tall, commanding, dark, and impossible. The way he circled me, studied me, tested me. It wasn't just power. There was curiosity there, too. Interest. And perhaps something else I wasn't ready to admit. Attraction. Forbidden, dangerous, but undeniable. I pressed my hands to my face, taking slow breaths to steady myself. Elara, I whispered, almost as if speaking my name could anchor me. You have to survive this. You have to. But even as I said it, a small, guilty part of me thrilled at the thought of him, of what was to come. Desire, fear, danger, they were all tangled together now, impossible to separate. And I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same. The hall was silent again, but the echoes of him, of us, lingered, a quiet promise that the next encounter would be even more intense, more dangerous, and far more intoxicating. The hall grew colder as night settled outside, but inside, the tension seemed to thrum through every stone and torchlit shadow. I could feel him still, the Alpha King, lingering even when out of sight. My pulse raced, every nerve alive, every instinct alert. A sharp clack of boots echoed across the floor, and he returned. His presence alone stole the breath from my lungs. "Elara," he said, voice low and commanding, carrying that dangerous undertone that made my chest tighten. "Tonight, you begin your true test." I swallowed hard, nodding, though my stomach churned with a mix of fear and anticipation. I understand," I whispered. He circled me slowly, eyes like dark flames, and I felt exposed, yet inexplicably drawn. Obedience is survival. Curiosity is a weakness I will exploit. The first challenge was simple in words, brutal in implication. I was to navigate the hall alone, with only the flickering torchlight to guide me. Hidden threats awaited, both real and imagined. Illusions, traps, and tests of instinct. And I knew every misstep would be noted, every hesitation observed. I stepped forward, heart hammering, every shadow dancing at the edge of my vision. The first step felt like stepping into a storm, the next like walking on a blade's edge. My body was tense, every sense sharpened. I could feel him watching, studying, measuring me. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the far wall, too quick to be human, too deliberate to be chance. My breath caught. Instinct screamed at me to flee, but my feet obeyed another command. Survive, focus, move. As I navigated the hall, dodging, weaving, and calculating each step, I realized something terrifying and thrilling. Fear and desire weren't opposing forces tonight. They were intertwined, binding me to him in ways I didn't yet understand. Finally, I reached the center of the hall where he stood waiting, silent, as if the room itself had guided me to him. My body trembled, heart racing, mind spinning with the thrill and terror of the challenge. "You did well," he said, voice low, almost approving. "But this is only the beginning, Elara. You will learn that obedience is survival, and desire is inevitable." I swallowed, trembling, yet unable to hide the small spark of something forbidden, a thrill that lingered despite the fear. This was the night everything changed, the night the Alpha King marked me, not with chains, but with his presence, his dominance, and the intoxicating promise of what was to come. And I knew without a doubt that nothing would ever be the same. I woke to the sound of boots pounding against stone, heavy and deliberate. My chest tightened with every echo, as if the sound itself was marching toward me. I sat up quickly, my heart already racing, my skin clammy from a night of restless sleep. The knock that followed wasn't a polite request. It was a command. "Elara, the Alpha King summons you." The words sent a shiver tearing down my spine. Summoned. Again? I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. For a heartbeat, I thought of refusing, of locking the door and curling back under the thin blanket. But who was I fooling? There was no escape from him. My hands trembled as I pulled on the simple gray dress laid out for me. The fabric clung to me, heavy with the weight of expectation. Every step toward that door felt like walking closer to fate itself. When I finally opened it, 2 guards stood like pillars, their eyes as empty as their expressions. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They turned sharply, and I followed, my pulse fluttering wildly in my throat. I told myself it was fear. That was all. But in the deepest corner of my heart, I knew it wasn't only fear. It was anticipation. The heavy doors groaned as they opened, swallowing me in their shadows. I froze at the threshold, breath caught in my chest. The hall was vast, endless, a cathedral of stone and fire. The walls were carved with snarling wolves, their eyes sharp in the torchlight, as if they were watching me, judging me. And then I saw him, the Alpha King. He sat on a throne of black iron and bone, his body relaxed, but his presence anything but. Power radiated from him, filling every corner of the room, suffocating me in invisible chains. His gaze locked on me the moment I stepped inside, sharp and unblinking, like a predator that had been waiting. The silence pressed down, heavy and suffocating. I could hear nothing but the frantic beat of my own heart. I wanted him to speak. I needed him to speak. But he only watched, as if testing how long I could endure the weight of his stare. By the time I reached the center of the hall, my knees were weak. "Tell me," he said at last, his voice a deep rumble that echoed against the stone. "Do you know why I chose you?" The question struck me like a blow. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Why had he chosen me? Out of all the Omegas, why me? Because I was unlucky, because I was weak, because fate had cursed me. But none of those answers left my lips. My throat tightened, my chest burning under the weight of his gaze. He leaned forward, elbows on the armrests of his throne, his lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You don't know," he murmured. His voice was softer now, but it wrapped around me like silk, dangerous and seductive. "Yet your eyes betray you. You burn with something even you can't name." I swallowed hard, heat rushing to my cheeks. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong, but deep inside, I feared he was right. "Come closer." 2 words, simple, deadly. The hall stretched before me like a battlefield, and every step I took felt heavier than the last. My pulse thundered in my ears. The floor beneath my feet might as well have been quicksand, pulling me deeper into his orbit. I could feel his eyes devouring me as I walked, stripping me bare, peeling away every layer of defense I tried to cling to. By the time I stood before him, my chest was tight, my palms slick with sweat. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle, or prey he hadn't decided how to devour yet. His lips quirked in a way that made my stomach twist. "Brave," he said softly, almost like a caress. Then his smirk deepened. "Or foolish." I wasn't sure which one scared me more. "Come closer." 2 words, simple, deadly. The hall stretched before me like a battlefield, and every step I took felt heavier than the last. My pulse thundered in my ears. The floor beneath my feet might as well have been quicksand, pulling me deeper into his orbit. I could feel his eyes devouring me as I walked, stripping me bare, peeling away every layer of defense I tried to cling to. By the time I stood before him, my chest was tight, my palms slick with sweat. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle, or prey he hadn't decided how to devour yet. His lips quirked in a way that made my stomach twist. "Brave," he said softly, almost like a caress. Then his smirk deepened. "Or foolish." I wasn't sure which one scared me more. His hand lifted, slow and deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. My breath caught when I saw it, a faint glow pulsing at his palm, golden and alive, like a heartbeat outside of flesh. "This," he said, his voice threaded with power, "is the Alpha's mark." The glow grew brighter, the energy radiating toward me, making my skin prickle. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. "One touch, and you will belong to me," he continued, his eyes locked onto mine. "Body, soul, forever." My chest rose and fell too quickly, my heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted to escape. He didn't touch me, not yet, but his words already bound me, tighter than any chain ever could. I knew then he could ruin me with just a single choice. The heavy doors burst open with a violent clang that echoed through the throne room. Torches flickered, shadows danced, and my heart lurched as a man strode forward with the authority of someone who belonged here. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his presence sharp and cold, like the steel of a blade. His eyes found me immediately, narrow, disdainful, filled with contempt so raw it made my stomach twist. "My king," he said, bowing low, though his words dripped with venom. "This Omega does not belong in this hall." The Alpha King's expression darkened. The weight of his fury filled the air, thick as smoke. Slowly, he rose from his throne, each motion deliberate, a predator preparing to strike. "She belongs where I place her," he replied, voice as calm as winter frost, but deadly in its finality. "Do you challenge me, Beta?" He stiffened, his jaw clenched. Silence fell between them, sharp and dangerous. His bow deepened, but his eyes betrayed him, hatred, simmering and unmasked. For the first time, I understood something terrifying. Even among wolves, the Alpha King's choice to claim me was not just unusual, it was blasphemy. The doors slammed shut. The sound reverberated through the chamber like a sentence being sealed. I was alone with him. The Alpha King descended the steps of his throne, the air shifting with every stride he took. His presence wrapped around me, suffocating yet magnetic, a tether I could not cut even if I dared. He circled me slowly, a hunter savoring the nearness of his prey. His boots struck the stone with quiet menace, and with every pass he drew closer. I stood frozen, my pulse thrumming in my ears. His heat brushed against my skin, the weight of his gaze pressing into me. My body screamed to move, to flee, but I remained rooted to the floor, as if bound by invisible chains. When he finally stopped behind me, so close I could feel the warmth of his breath, the silence stretched unbearably. "You're trembling," he murmured. "Good. Fear reminds you that you are alive." I clenched my fist at my sides, hating the way my body betrayed me. The doors slammed shut. The sound reverberated through the chamber like a sentence being sealed. I was alone with him. The Alpha King descended the steps of his throne, the air shifting with every stride he took. His presence wrapped around me, suffocating yet magnetic, a tether I could not cut even if I dared. He circled me slowly, a hunter savoring the nearness of his prey. His boots struck the stone with quiet menace, and with every pass he drew closer. I stood frozen, my pulse thrumming in my ears. His heat brushed against my skin, the weight of his gaze pressing into me. My body screamed to move, to flee, but I remained rooted to the floor, as if bound by invisible chains. When he finally stopped behind me, so close I could feel the warmth of his breath, the silence stretched unbearably. "You're trembling," he murmured. "Good. Fear reminds you that you are alive." I clenched my fist at my sides, hating the way my body betrayed me. The words escaped me before I could think. Reckless, foolish, perhaps the bravest or stupidest thing I'd ever done. "And if I refuse you?" For a moment, silence devoured the room. My own heart seemed to stop, waiting for his wrath. Then came laughter. Low, dangerous, the kind that slid beneath the skin like a blade. He caught my chin between his fingers, tilting my head until I was forced to meet his burning gaze. His eyes glowed faintly, primal, filled with fire I couldn't look away from. "Refuse me?" he murmured, amusement laced with cruelty. His thumb brushed against my skin, firm yet lingering. "Then I will make you beg for what you fear most." The promise in his tone seared into me. My lips parted, but no words came. His closeness stole every breath, leaving me caught between terror and a thrill I could not banish. At last, he released me, stepping back as though satisfied with my unraveling. His power retreated like a tide pulling from the shore, but its weight lingered, clinging to my skin, my thoughts, my soul. "Go," he said simply, his voice cutting like iron. "For now." The guards reappeared, silent as shadows, escorting me through the long corridors. My body moved on instinct, but my mind burned with chaos. And then I felt it. Eyes, watching me. Not his, not the guards. Something else. Cold, calculating, hidden within the darkness of the stone halls. The hairs on my neck rose. My steps faltered, but I forced myself forward, unwilling to show weakness. By the time I reached the solitude of my chamber, one truth was carved into me. I wasn't just a mate claimed by an alpha king. I was a pawn in a game older, darker, and far deadlier than I could yet imagine. The moon hung low, pale and watchful, its silver light spilling through the narrow window of my chamber. I lay on the bed, but sleep refused to claim me. My body was restless, my thoughts louder than the silence that pressed around me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the Alpha King. The memory of his voice echoed inside my skull, deep, commanding, wrapping around me like chains I couldn't break. His presence still clung to me, heavy as smoke, impossible to shake off. I remembered the heat of his breath when he whispered against my ear, the way his eyes had burned into mine as though I wasn't flesh and blood, but something he owned. Fear should have been enough to keep me trembling. But it wasn't fear alone that gnawed at me. It was something far more dangerous, a forbidden spark, a pull I couldn't explain, couldn't name. My heart raced at the memory of his nearness, and shame burned hot in my chest. I shouldn't want this. I shouldn't crave the very beast who had bound me with nothing but a glance. But my body betrayed me, betraying every ounce of logic, every instinct to run. I curled onto my side, clutching the thin blanket tighter around me. The chamber felt both too small and too vast at once, every creak of stone and rustle of wind feeding my unease. Why me? Out of all the Omegas, why had he chosen me? I bit my lip until it hurt, hoping the sting would drag me back into control. But it didn't. Instead, it only reminded me of his promise. "You are mine now, Elara." The words clung to me, sinking deeper with every repetition. The night stretched endlessly, and I knew one thing with chilling certainty. No matter how far I ran in my thoughts, the Alpha King's claim had already reached me. And sleep was no longer my refuge. The cold stillness of the night pressed against the stone walls, when suddenly, tap, tap, the faintest sound at my door. My breath caught, sharp and quick. No one should be here. Guards patrolled outside, servants were tired long before nightfall. I sat up slowly, every muscle tense. Another knock, softer this time, almost desperate. I forced my voice low. "Who's there?" The door cracked open and a shadow slipped inside. A girl, no older than me, dressed in the plain garb of a servant. Her eyes darted around the room, wide with fear, before they locked onto mine. She shut the door quickly behind her, pressing her back against it as though running from ghosts. "Forgive me, my lady," she whispered, voice trembling. "I shouldn't be here. If they catch me," she swallowed hard. "But you need to know." I rose slowly from the bed, heart pounding. Know what? Her hands twisted the edge of her apron, her gaze flicking toward the barred window as if afraid someone might be listening. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a breath. "The beta. He's watching you." Her words pierced through me like a blade. My chest tightened, and for a moment I could only stare at her, trying to understand. "He doesn't want you here," she rushed on. "He says you're dangerous, that the Alpha King is distracted because of you." She glanced nervously at the door. "He's waiting for you to make one mistake, one wrong step. Then he'll—" She didn't finish. She didn't need to. The fear in her eyes told me enough. I shivered, the weight of her warning pressing down harder than the Alpha King's presence ever had. The beta, the man who had stormed into the throne room earlier, venom in his gaze. He wasn't going to stop. "Why tell me this?" I asked, voice raw. The servant's lips trembled, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Because I know what it's like to be hunted." She took a step back, her face paling. "Please, be careful. You are not safe, not even within these walls." Before I could speak again, she pulled the door open and slipped into the shadows of the corridor. Gone. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. But this time, it wasn't empty. The Alpha's beta's shadow lingered in the corners of my room, his hatred pressing in like invisible claws, and I knew then that the Alpha King was not my only danger. The servant's warning left my chest tight with unease. I tried to sleep, but every flicker of torchlight beneath my door kept me awake. Every sound in the corridor made me jolt. When dawn broke, I thought maybe the danger had passed until the guards arrived. "Come," one said sharply, not meeting my eyes. "You're summoned." My stomach twisted. It wasn't the Alpha King's voice echoing behind those words. No, this felt different. Heavier. Colder. They led me through narrow stone halls, their boots echoing against the floor. The air grew colder the farther we went, the walls closing in like a prison. Finally, they stopped before a shadowed corridor I didn't recognize. One guard gestured inside. I hesitated. "Who waits for me?" Neither answered. They only exchanged a glance before one muttered, "Go." I stepped into the darkness. The corridor stretched long and narrow, lit only by the faintest glow of torches. My pulse thundered in my ears as I moved forward, the silence broken only by the hollow sound of my own steps. And then he emerged from the shadows. The beta. Tall, broad-shouldered, his presence nearly as suffocating as the Alpha King's, but sharper, crueler, like a blade waiting to cut. His eyes found mine immediately, hard and unrelenting, filled with the disdain he didn't bother to hide. "You," he said, his voice low, edged with venom. "The Omega who thinks she belongs in the King's Hall?" My stomach twisted. It wasn't the Alpha King's voice echoing behind those words. No, this felt different. Heavier. Colder. He stepped closer, the torchlight carving shadows across his sharp features. His presence was suffocating, but not in the way the Alpha's had been. The Alpha's dominance felt like gravity, pulling me in. The Beta's felt like poison, seeping, corrupting, meant to destroy. "You don't belong here, Omega," he said slowly, his voice thick with contempt. "And I'll make sure you don't last." The corridor seemed to shrink around us, and for the first time since being taken, I realized I wasn't just bound to the Alpha King. I was caught in a game between predators. The silence in that corridor pressed against me, thick and suffocating. The Beta's eyes never left mine, sharp and calculating, as though he were peeling away my layers, searching for the weakest part of me to strike. I wanted to look away, to lower my gaze as an Omega should before a higher wolf, but something inside me refused. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was fear disguising itself as defiance. His lips curled. He noticed. "Bold," he muttered, his voice low and mocking, or just stupid. He circled me like a predator, slow, deliberate. His boots clicked against the stone floor, echoing in the narrow hall. Every step he took made the air heavier, as if the walls themselves bowed to his presence. "You think the king chose you?" he spat, his voice sharp now, venom dripping with each word. "You think you've caught his attention because you're special?" I stiffened, my heart pounding so loud I feared he could hear it. "You're nothing," he continued, his tone cruel. Every syllable meant to crush me. "An Omega, a servant, meat for the wolves. You don't deserve to be here, and if the king weren't blinded by his whims, you'd already be thrown back to the gutter where you belong." His words cut deep, though I clenched my fists to keep them from showing on my face. I'd heard insults before, endured whispers of weakness and shame, but coming from him, the Beta, the sting was sharper, almost unbearable. His lips curled, he noticed. Stopped before me, his towering frame blocking the flickering torchlight. For a moment, silence stretched between us. I could feel the heat of his breath, the raw hostility rolling off him like fire. "Listen carefully, Omega," he said, his voice dropping into a deadly calm. "The king may have brought you here, but this pack is mine to guard. My order is law when he is not present, and I will not allow a worthless creature like you to poison his judgment." The weight of his words sank into me. It wasn't just disdain, it was hatred, deep and unyielding, as though my very existence threatened everything he believed in. And beneath that hatred, I glimpsed something else: fear. The Beta wasn't just cruel for the sake of cruelty. He was afraid. Afraid of what I represented. Afraid of what I might become if the king truly favored me. The thought sent a chill down my spine. Because if the Beta feared me, then I was in more danger than I had ever imagined. The Beta's words clung to me like poison. He blocked my path, eyes cold and calculating. "You don't belong here," he murmured, voice dripping with malice and persuasion. "Leave tonight, before the king marks you. Walk away and live free." Freedom. The word struck me like lightning. But beneath his sneer, I glimpsed desperation. He needed me gone, which terrified me more than his threat. I should have left, but his venom rooted me to the spot. The air thickened, heat blooming in my chest. Sparks danced across my skin. The beta's sneer faltered. "Impossible," he whispered. Light flickered at my fingertips before vanishing. Power. Mine. The beta's hatred sharpened. "If he discovers this," he hissed, but stopped himself. My heart pounded. The Alpha King wasn't the only one with a claim on my fate. The beta's rage closed in until the air shifted. Shadows stretched, torches dimmed, a dominance so heavy it crushed the hall. The Alpha King had arrived. The beta bowed stiffly. "My king." Enough. One word cracked like a whip. The Alpha's gaze locked on me, burning, unrelenting. "Did he touch you?" he asked. I shook my head. "Good. Leave us." The beta vanished, and then it was just me and the Alpha King's storm. Silence. His eyes roamed me like a predator memorizing prey. "What did he say to you?" His voice was soft steel. "Nothing that matters," I whispered, trembling. He stepped closer, thumb tilting my chin. Heat seared where he touched. "You tremble," he murmured, "but not from fear alone." He leaned in, but pulled back, eyes unreadable. "Remember this. You belong to me now." His touch was both cage and temptation. His words burned hotter than his touch. "Do you understand what it means to stand before me?" he asked. "It means I have no choice," I whispered. "No," he said. "It means you are protected. Mine. Always." My heart pounded. "You speak of protection," I said, "but all I feel is a cage." He caged me with his arm, eyes gleaming. The most dangerous wolf is also the one who protects you from the rest. And against my will, I almost believed him. The guards escorted me back through winding corridors. My heart still raced with the memory of the Alpha King's touch. Then I saw him. The beta stood half swallowed by torchlight, his eyes cold as steel. No mercy, only a promise. By the time I blinked, he was gone. In my chamber, I pressed a hand to my wrist and gasped. A faint, glowing mark curled across my skin. And then a voice echoed inside my mind. Mine. The beta's shadow, the Alpha's mark, and me, caught between them. This was only the beginning.